Although we typically end the week with a test, the importance of this next unit is so high that I figured we'd end this week with an introduction to factoring and the process that's going to be needed to be seen and understood very soon, especially saying Monday. But today we're just going to kind of go through some quick activities to kind of give you the introduction of what you need to know how to do. So write this key information here. Your standard form of a quadrilateral is ax squared plus bx plus c. What this means is a is attached to x squared, b is attached to x, and c is the number that has nothing attached to it. When we go to translate this, you remember the multiplies to make a number, adds to make a number. That comes from multiplies to make whatever a times c is, and it adds to make whatever b is. And the example of this as you write it is if you had this trinomial or quadrilateral, it would multiply to make 3 times negative 9 because that's a times c, and it would add to make 26 because that is b. Alright, so pause it if you need to finish it, and I am moving on to problem 1. Problem 1 says we need to translate the trinomial. This is one thing you're going to be doing later on, so make sure you have it. Again, what you do is you pretty much, if you need to, you can identify a, b, and c this way, but I think that you are probably good enough at this point to just kind of identify them by the eye. But again, you will start out, your translation is going to be multiplies to make. And again, you take this number times that number. This is 8 times negative 3, so it multiplies to make 24, adds to make whatever is in the middle, which is negative 2. Keep in mind that when you find the numbers, you make the tree based off of the multiplication number, starting with 1. 1 times 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8, 4 times 6. And again, you can use your common sense and recognize that these don't add or subtract to make 2. Neither do these, neither do these. These are the only ones that add or subtract to make 2. Since you want a negative 2, it means that the bigger number has to win, and so the bigger number has to be negative, and the only way you end up with negative 2 is if the 4 is positive. And so the two numbers that multiply to make negative 24 are negative 6 times 4, and just to check that, we do 4 plus negative 6, and you see that you do get negative 2 as your answer, and so that would be the numbers you're looking for. Alright, so it comes from here to the translation to the numbers. You're going to find out pretty soon that as long as you can do those two things, you are going to get most of your factors correct. This one here, again, if you had to identify it, a is equal to 1, b is equal to negative 7, c is equal to 10. Again, a is x squared, b is x, c is the last number. And again, you're going to start with multiplies to equal a times c, which is front times back. This is 1 times 10. Which is 10, and it adds to make whatever is in the middle, which is negative 7. So again, make the tree for whatever the multiplication number is. So 1 times 10, 2 times 5, 3 doesn't go, 4 doesn't go, and 5 is already there. The only ones that make 7 are here. And again, now you use your common sense. In order to make a negative 7, the bigger number has to be negative, and the only way you make 7 is if 5 is negative and 2 is also negative. And so again, negative 2 times negative 5 is positive 10. Negative 2 plus negative 5 is negative 7. And that is all. Alright. Again, just watching at this point, translate the trinomial. Again, if you have to, and you'll get better at this, you just go multiplies to equal. You multiply front times back. 2 times negative 9 is negative 18. And adds to make whatever is in the middle, which is negative 3. You take those numbers, 18 goes here, 1 times 18, 2 times 9, 3 times 6, 4 doesn't go, 5 doesn't go, 6 is already there. Again, we've done this for at least a week now. From there, again, the only ones that make 3, that doesn't make 3, this doesn't make 3, but this does. 6 and 3 being the numbers. If I need a negative 3, that means 6 has to be negative, and the only way I go down to negative 3 is if the 3 is positive. So again, that is the process of translating. If you're having issues with that, please either raise your hand or bring the computer over to me, or whatever you need to make sure you get a clarification on what's going on with the translation part especially. I think you'll have time to kind of get that down, but make sure you at least have the translation down on where that comes from. We got another piece to write before we get started again, because the second thing we have to do is create the factors. And so you don't have to write this, but at least write trinomial, numbers, fractions. Write these 4 trinomials, write these numbers that go with it, and I will discuss the fractions that we will use to do that. But again, when creating the factors, pretty much the idea, again, you don't need to write this part, but once you know what the numbers are, You're going to use the first term of the trinomial to create two fractions, and then that's going to give you the factors. So again, what I'm going to do is kind of talk through what we're going to do here. Again, pause the video if you need to write this stuff down before I get started. But other than that, let's look at this situation here. Again, pause it before you let me talk again if you need to, but here's what we're doing. If I was given the trinomial 2x squared plus 9x plus 10, I will just tell you those numbers are 4 and 5 after you translate. So let's say we had this, we found the combination, we found the numbers. What you do is you take this only, don't worry about the squared part, but you just take the 2x and you put 2x over 4 and you put 2x over 5. Those are your two fractions. Now you will simplify this one, but those are the two fractions that you will start with. Okay? So again, given this trinomial, given these two numbers, you start by taking just the base. Don't take the exponent, but you take this over the numbers that are over there. Okay? Same thing here. If you had x squared minus 5x plus 6 and you knew the numbers were negative 2 and negative 3, which we would find on our own way, you simply take this term, and you can underline it, but you don't take the squared. You simply put x over negative 2, and you put x over negative 3. That is all. Same situation. If you had 3x squared minus x minus 10, of course we would do some work to find out those numbers are 5 and 6. We simply take the very first term, which is 3x, and just the 3x, and we put it over each number. So we'd have 3x over 5 and 3x over negative 6. Again, you can simplify this one, so we would, but those are the fractions that you would initially create to do your work. And the last one, if I had 12x squared plus 5x minus 2, and I found out through work, which you can, that the numbers are negative 3 and 8, we simply take this without the squared and we put 12x over negative 3, and we put 12x over 8. This one and that one can actually be simplified, and I'll show you how you do that in just a second. But just keep in mind your calculator actually reduces fractions for you, for those of you who are kind of nervous about that. But other than that, what you get is that your simplified fractions, again, you have to simplify them, but your simplified fractions become your factors. So after you get that written down, let's move on to problem 4, where it actually wants us to factor 4x squared plus 9x minus 9. Now factor means go through the whole process. It means the first thing we have to do is identify that it multiplies to equal 4 times negative 9, which is negative 36, and adds to make the middle number, which is 9. You then make a factor tree for the top number. So 36 is 1 times 36, 2 times 18, 3 times 12, 4 times 9, 6 times 6. Using this, the only ones that make 9, that doesn't, that doesn't, that does, that makes 13 or 5, nope, that makes 12 or 0, nope, so it's got to be this one. Got to be 3 and 12. If 9 is positive, that means 12 must be positive, and the only way I go down to 9 is if 3 is negative. Again, once I have those two things, I'm going to take this first term. This is what we just worked on. Now that we have the numbers, I'm going to take this first term and put it over both numbers. So I put 4x over negative 3, and I put 4x over 12. If you have to, check 4 over negative 3 as a fraction. So 4 divided by negative 3 equals, turn into a fraction by doing math, enter, enter. Notice it stays 4/3, so that is reduced. 4/12, if you don't know what it is, which I hope that you do, when you convert that to a fraction, you get 1/3. So pretty much this simplifies to be x over 3, because it reduces. That becomes a 1, that becomes a 3, and that is your fraction. Now here's what you have to do to finish it off. You simply take your parentheses and write this as a binomial. So you write 4x minus 3 here, and you write x with a plus 3 here. And as you do a quick check, there is your 4x squared. There is your negative 9. This is a positive 12 minus 3, which gives you your positive 9, and that is it. All right. So again, thinking about that, you have to do your translation. You have to know how to find the numbers. Once you find the numbers, take them and put them under the fraction. Simplify your fractions. Put them all together. This is not where you have to absolutely be today, but this is just, again, the full introduction, showing you what you need to know in order to get there. And we're going to work on this for a few days, actually a couple days, probably Monday and Tuesday before we move on. I don't know though. Again, factor 2x squared plus x minus 6. The first thing we must do is translate. So we want numbers that multiply to be 2 times negative 6, which is negative 12. And we want numbers that add to be whatever's here, and there is no number there, but remember that is a invisible 1. So we want numbers that multiply to be negative 12 and add to be 1. Make the tree for the top number 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. That doesn't make 1, that doesn't make 1, but this does. Take this 1. Since it's positive, it means that 4 must be positive, and the only way you get to 1 is if 3 is negative. From there, take this term, which is 2x, put 2x over negative 3, 2x over 4. I know 2 and 4 can both be divided by 2, making this x over 2. And going back, I take this problem and I go 2x minus 3 and x plus 2 to wrap that up. That is all you have to do to factor. So really, as you see, the most important part to factoring is finding the numbers, because after you get that, this skill you'll get better at. It'll probably take you just one day of practice and kind of working with it through frustration or whatever, but just working with it a little bit before you get used to dealing with that fraction there. But again, for that fraction, you take the first term and you put it on top of both numbers and simply simplify those fractions. And the last warm-up question before we start looking at these together. Here we want numbers that multiply to equal 1 times negative 15, which is negative 15. And we want numbers that add to be this middle number, which is negative 2. You then take the tree for 15, which is 1 times 15. 2 doesn't go. 3 times 5. 4 doesn't go. 5 is already there. And only one that makes 2 is this one, because that's either 16 or 14. Since 2 is negative, 5 must be negative. The only way we get to negative 2 is if 3 is positive. You take your first term, which is x, put it over both numbers. Notice neither one of these can be reduced, and your final answer is x plus 3 and x minus 5. So with that said, again, this is an introduction activity, so I do not expect perfection, but I do need to see who knows what. So do me a favor, take a small piece of paper before you do anything else and factor as well as you can. Don't ask for help from anyone in the room. I need to see what you know so that I know where I need to be on Monday. But again, on a small sheet of paper, factor as far as you can on both of these. Do the translation. Take the translation and find the numbers. Go as far as you can. If all you can do is the translation but you don't know how to find the numbers, I need to see that. If you know how to translate, you know how to find the numbers, but you don't know what to do from there, I need to see that. If you don't know anything at all, just write those two things down and do that. But in order to give me that, I mean, you seriously have to know nothing at all. Nothing about the translation, nothing about the finding the numbers or whatever. But give me your best shot on this. I need to see, the more work I see, the more I can help you as a student. So I need to see what you know, whether it's frustrating or not. Just show me what you know so I can analyze this stuff and make a good lesson for you next week and go from there. Other than that, good luck. After you finish this, go to MathXL and you will have an assignment waiting for you. And then when everybody gets done with the video, we will begin our class activity. Good luck.